Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad I found you on Podmatch. I think that we're going to be learning a lot from you today. And I feel like both our stories do align. So I'm super excited. So, in every Mentally About Us episode, we like to go a little bit more in the past so we can learn more about you and what you're doing today. So, you started your career in the heart of Hollywood, working with some of the biggest names in the industry. How did you move from that world of entertainment into creating a wellness brand and writing a book about inner peace?
Okay, so yes, I worked in Hollywood for several years. I worked on some really huge projects, and I was very much kind of like around celebrities and doing the networking thing. And I felt like, I was very cool. But at the end of the day, it really wasn't what my heart was telling me that I should be doing. And the ego and some of the personalities really got to me, and it felt like it was eating away at my soul. And it was really hard actually to leave because you've kind of put so many years in, and also you got beat up as well. There was like lots of like verbal abuse, and just constantly dealing with these like very difficult personalities. And then you put the years in, and then you get to this point where you're like, I am so miserable, but what do I do now? Like, and you feel like what you did was a waste. And so it was a very difficult place to be in. And after actually I decided to leave the entertainment industry. My parents owned an Italian restaurant in San Luis Obispo, California, which is like near Santa Barbara. And so I thought, oh, maybe I'll take over the restaurant business. And I was there for like a year and a half, and I was miserable in the restaurant business. And then I thought, maybe this is a me problem. Like maybe there's something wrong with me, like inherently wrong, and I can't be happy because I was, like in Hollywood, had a job that people dream about having, had connections people dream about having, didn't like it, was miserable. Then I come back to like a family business that does well. I'm miserable. So then I went back to LA, and I just fell into like a very deep depression. And at that point, I was like, I don't even know who I am, because I'd constantly been living my life to please other people, what I thought would look cool, what I thought would be acceptable in society. And I never asked myself, well, what do I really want? I kind of didn't even know like what my favorite color was, like very basic things. I feel like I was just doing things because I thought they looked good, would be cool, sounded good, made me acceptable. And I didn't know myself at all. And so it put me into like a really dark place.
I think what I wanted to ask before I forget, I wrote it down here, is so coming from a mental health perspective, have you always had like that feeling, let's say like in high school, feeling like you had to do something that looks good on the outside because of society's expectations, or was your career in Hollywood like the first time you experienced that?
No, I mean, I definitely think it was that. And I think that's kind of normal. Like most people, like we're taught, to fit in,
Yeah.
right? And be like acceptable in society,
Hmm.
which isn't necessarily all a horrible thing, but it gets negative when you don't even know who you are anymore, and you're
Yeah.
just doing things to check off boxes. Like university check, job check, marriage check, kids check. That's your life. They shouldn't be boxes
Yeah.
that you're checking. Like I mean, fine, to-do list, go to the grocery store, check. Fine, have your to-do list, that you need to check off. But like when it comes to like huge life things, your life should not be a checkbox. And a lot of us make our lives a checkbox. And then what happens is when we check the box, and then we're like, okay, well, we got what we wanted, but now we're so unhappy. And a lot of times that leads to like suicidal thoughts, because you're like, well, I got everything I wanted and I'm unhappy, so there must be something inherently wrong with me, and then you're
Yeah.
like, well, I'm not a starving like child in a third world country, and I'm this
Yeah.
miserable, so there must be something wrong with me and there's no hope. And I definitely was in that place.
Yeah, and I've also met a lot of people that I've also interviewed on here as well that has felt like that, and it gets to the point where you start having like thinking about suicide, which is that's where it gets the darkest. And then if you don't know like who you are, like your like favorite color, for example, sometimes I think about like what's my favorite color. I think about that every couple of months just to see if I still remember my favorite color.
Or if you changed, you know?
See, yes, yeah, exactly. And I've experienced something pretty similar, except I didn't work in Hollywood, but I did work for Disney. I live in Orlando, so I worked for Walt Disney World, which it's also another ideal company that people would love to work for. So
Yes.
when I did work there, actually, like the first year was great. After that, I was dying like every year. It was getting worse and worse, and a lot of people don't know that like how hard it is to be a cast member, and it's because like it was a lot of like abuse, like not not too much from the company, but more of like the people on the outside of how like I met people from all over the world, and some people could be really mean, and
Yeah.
it truly like I feel like it really truly changed the chemistry of my brain so bad that I had to go on FMLA. So like
Oh,
pretty much it's Family Medical Leave Act. So I if I call into work, I don't get fired. And so yeah, it got bad. So I that's why I was like I'd love to talk with you, is because I feel like you and I have had some similarities in the path of our lives. And I think something that we could have both agree on is that we are given like this checklist like, okay, go to college, get your degree, get a job, get married, have kids, have grandkids, have your kids become like honor students. Like, there's a particular, it's like, if you think about it, who made this? Do you ever like think about these deep
yeah.
thoughts?
Well, this is so funny. I actually write about this in my book that's coming out, and I talk about like 'cause I went to private Catholic school and how like you had to make honor roll because your mom had to have that bumper sticker on the back of her car that said like I'm the proud mom of an honor roll student, and how like 1 year I didn't make the honor roll. It was like I feel like I shamed my family. And I mean, after that, I always made honor roll because I never wanted to like, shame my family again. But and so I actually write about this in the book as well. Like in one way, someone could look at that and go, well, see, it worked, And it's like, okay, yeah, but it's never good when you value yourself based upon the perceived value of somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people that didn't do well in school and flunked out of school and stuff are geniuses. They
Yeah.
just didn't fit into that box, you know? So there's a line there with that stuff.
Yeah, no, I definitely totally agree with you. And when you were mentioning how people who like flunk out of school are, also amazingly smart people, that is like so true. So I didn't flunk out of school, but I wasn't an A student. I wasn't like a straight A student or anything like that. But I don't like, what's crazy too is that if you are not like getting straight A's or honor roll or this or that, like some people can be really mean and be like, oh, she's so stupid, and like be like so like, I mean, I got that.
Really?
Yeah. Anyway, that's we're talking about you, not me.
No, I mean, like, no, it's true. I mean, I definitely got called some names in grade school and stuff, and it's brutal. It hurts. Like, even sometimes thinking about it, it's like cringy. You cringe a little bit inside, you know? But,
Yeah.
this world is not easy.
Tell me about
And
it.
so we do need to formulate a little bit of tough skin because the world like out there like even if you're like super coddled as a child and then you go out into the world and like nothing bad ever happened to you, the world is going to be a very brutal, scary place. You know what I mean? So
True.
you do have to formulate like some tough skin, but there's definitely a lot of dysfunction in society. And so as an adult, it's good to understand that and figure out who you are. And that
Hmm.
also takes like a tough skin. It takes a tough skin to be who you really are in a dysfunctional society.
Yeah, actually, like that friend I was talking about that lives in LA, she she grew up with me in New Jersey and then moved to LA. She's an actress. And so when she moved, she actually got like a deal with as an influencer, she got a deal with Starbucks, right? But she
Okay.
got that deal during the whole boycotting, but it was like the deal actually happened before that happened. But like obviously the content went up during it. So she got a lot of hate in like her DMs, like people telling her to like kill herself and everything. And so when I was visiting her in January, she was like talking to me about it. She was like, "Yeah, when I moved to you, I realized I really need to get some thick skin. Like you need to build some thick skin living here." So
So
I thought of
LA,
that when you said
LA
that.
will, oh yeah,
That's what she said.
and most people can't survive it, it is not for like, what is that saying? The faint of heart, or I'm not good with my sayings.
So you're in depression and it was getting super dark. So what was that moment where it was like, okay, it's time to change my life around?
Yeah. So I was having like suicidal thoughts, and I was like, okay, listen, either we're going to figure yourself out so that you can feel better, because I was in like a mental prison, and
Yeah.
it got so bad to where like it was like a negative like loop, like record player, like playing over and over and over again. And it's like I couldn't stop it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, if I can't figure out how to like stop this negative track, then life isn't worth living. Like I thought my life isn't worth living if I can't figure this out, because I really wanted to figure out how do I experience like just joy without it being attached to anything, like without it being like a new career or a lot of money or a lover. How do I experience joy just like every day and, turn off this negativity I have going on in my brain? And so I have a little warrior spirit. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do yoga every day. I'm going to walk in nature every day. I like watched a lot of YouTube videos, and I read, a lot of self-help books. And so I kind of formulated my own strategy of how to get out of this depression. And I was very disciplined about it, which was really hard, because when you're depressed, like you don't want to get out of bed. You want to eat junk food. You know what I mean? You just have kind of no zest for life.
Yeah.
But I do have this like little warrior spirit in me. And she was like, "You're going to do this." And so like I made myself do this like every day, like wake up, go walk by the beach, do a yoga class, meditate, read some pages out of a self-help book, write down 5 things that you're grateful for. I know everybody that's into self-help has heard the right like things you're grateful for, but
Yeah.
honestly, when you're not grateful and you're just writing them down, you're training your brain. You know what I mean? You're training your brain muscle to focus on what you're grateful for versus what you're unhappy about.
Yes.
And like our brains really do run like a computer system, and you have to train them.
Mm-hmm.
Just like your muscles in a gym, you have to train it to do what you want. And so I basically like reprogrammed the system. And one day I woke up and nothing new had happened in my life. Like there was no like new career or new guy or new whatever. And it was just the same old day. And I woke up and I had this like surge of positive energy running through my body. It was kind of like being on MDMA or something. It really was. It was like being on a drug without being on a drug. And
Yeah.
so I was like, oh my God, I got to go out into nature. And I remember looking at this tree that I walked past every day in my neighborhood.
Mhm.
And I was like staring at this tree in awe. And I'd never really seen this tree before. And then,
Mm.
yeah. And that's when I like discovered there's this quote that I always loved, but I never really understood it. And it says, it's not about seeking new landscape. It's about having new eyes.
Yeah.
And I started to see everything like very differently. It's like the depression like goggles were off, and like the like grateful, joyful glasses were on.
Yeah. Do you know that our brains are negative at default? Yeah. And it has to do a lot with like how back in the day how we're wired and how we always have to be like in survival mode. So
Yes.
even though we don't have to worry about like getting our meat or getting this or getting that, our brain has to choose something else to fixate on and be depressed on. As you were saying, like having like kind of being that moment where you're like, okay, I'm done being negative, I don't want to feel like this, I don't want to actually die, I want to actually do something amazing in my life. And then you became disciplined, which is amazing. Like that's awesome. Like it's really hard for someone to do what you did by getting out of bed, journaling, meditating, yoga, like doing everything. Like that
Yeah.
takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. You doing that has rewired your brain. Like literally, like it's rewiring neurons. Like that's the actual like
Yeah.
chemistry behind it. And
Yeah.
yeah, and actually a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that the brain can actually create new connections and you can be a completely different person. So what's really, crazy is that I grew up in New Jersey and I
Okay.
moved to Florida. And when I did the Disney college program, like that's my first time I experienced working for Disney, I was surrounded by people from all over the world. Everybody had different experiences in life. A lot of them were very positive, very friendly, very kind. And in New Jersey, a lot of people, I mean, I love my really good friends there, of course, but there's a lot of people who are very hostile and negative, and that's just part of the
Yeah.
culture. And
Yeah.
I did not thrive there.
Yeah.
I was surviving. And then when I moved here, people like first year of being like a full resident in Florida, I was just walking outside and people actually like waved at me and said hi.
Yeah. No, I get that. You know what I mean? The environment plays like a huge
Yeah.
impact.
I think it's like 90% actually. I did an ancestry thing and they were like 90% of who you are today is your environment.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And a lot of us are, so it's like we are conditioned through, our brains are conditioned through like programmed, let's say,
Mhm.
media, our environments, our religion, our family, like a lot
Mhm.
of the stuff we're carrying forward is like generational, like trauma stuff that we didn't even particularly go through, but we're carrying it within our personalities and like our,
Yeah.
our auras. And
Yeah.
so, but I mean, I think that like that gets all like kind of crazy. And then how do we fix that? And blah, blah, blah. I think it's very actually simple. Like, don't think
Mhm.
about all that right at this moment. If you're
Mhm.
going through a rough time, that's like a lot to take on. I say wake up every day and take a walk in nature. Write
Mhm.
down something you're grateful for. Even if you have a heart, like just it was sunny today or it rained and I really like the sound of the rain, or an old lady smiled at me, or you know what I mean? It's just very simple. You got to get like really basic and make it very easy for yourself. And then
Yes.
you start to feel better. And then all of a sudden you walk out into the world and you're just grateful for things.
Yeah.
And
100%.
it becomes a part of you.
Yeah. And they say that another thing too is, do you believe in the law of attraction?
I do, but I don't think it's like as simple as maybe,
No, I know. It's not simple.
it's,
Have you read the book The Secret?
yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, it was so long ago that I read that
Uh,
book.
yeah.
I think it's a good like intro
Yeah.
to the law of attraction. I think it is a really good, introduction to people that I think it's just good to know that what you put out there you're going to get back. So if you're
Yeah.
like a nasty person, people are probably going to be nasty to you. If you're a nice person, people are probably going to be nice to you. Granted, even if you go out in the world and you're very nice, you're going to get some nasty people.
Yeah.
But the odds are higher of getting a lot of positivity when you're positive?
Yeah. And another thing too is that it's always like delayed as well. So like
Oh, yeah.
it's also like when you're doing good things and putting good things into the universe, it has to be done like being like humble, not like, okay, I'm going to do something really nice for this person because I want something. It's all
Exactly.
that's what I noticed because I feel like we've all kind of been through something. Like, I mean, we were talking about ego before, right? And working on like your ego, like inside, like you can deal with like shadow work and stuff. Like a lot of people don't talk about ego. When people think of ego, they think, oh, if this person's acting like this person has a big ego. But no one really understands what like the word ego means. Do you want to talk
Yeah.
about that or?
So I actually really like this. Wayne Dyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer, you know him, right? He wrote like a ton of books, and he was like a best-selling author and
Sounds
speaker.
familiar.
And yeah, and he said that the ego is edging God out.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I really like that. I think the ego was created as like a protection mechanism to
Mm-hmm.
protect us. And I don't think the ego is like 100% like evil, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like we like our personality kind of is the ego, and we
Mm-hmm.
kind of need it, you know? But it's like you have like the ego and like the soul.
Yeah.
And you know, you don't want the ego, you don't want to grow the ego so large that it edges out the soul. Like
Yeah.
you really want you want the ego to work for the soul and not the other way around.
Yeah. And that makes sense in a way. It's like, as you were saying, I mean, it doesn't have to be all negative. It's going to be there. But yeah, if it grows more and it takes over the soul, it's kind of like a big, like, like a, the way I'm thinking about it and perceiving it is like the soul, even though like the soul is not like actually anything like physical, but I think of it more like white, and then like the ego, if it gets too big, it's like black, like overcrowding it. And then that's when people are saying like, oh, if you're like your ego's taking over, your ego driven, and it's like it's kind of takes you away from being humble,
Yeah.
and it takes you away from being grounded.
Yeah. And I think then when the ego gets out of control, which first
Mm-hmm.
started out as like a defense mechanism, like to mask major insecurity, right? Then the ego then turns into like a narcissistic personality. And it's funny because, you know, there was this guy I had a connection with like a few years back, right? And like we had this connection, and I felt it and he felt it. And I know he really cared about me, and his friends knew he really cared about me. But it was like he couldn't fully admit it because and then I was like, oh, this ego of his is like really in like trying to protect him mode. You know, it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's like I can risk getting hurt because anytime you like somebody, there you risk getting hurt. Because
Yeah, of
someone could
course.
cheat on you, someone could break up with you, somebody could, you know. And of course
Mm-hmm.
you want to be risk adverse, like you want to make intelligent risk decisions when it comes to who you're with, right?
Yeah.
But even if it's like this amazing, great person, you know, you're still risking your heart getting hurt anytime you really like somebody. And so I'm willing to take those risks, but it was like he couldn't. So he always like had to make sure like I liked him. Like I would have he would ask me questions like you know, I like, do you like me better than you liked anybody else kind of thing? He would ask me those kind of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And he wouldn't tell me how he felt, but he constantly wanted to know like how I
Oh,
felt about him, kind of to reassure him that like, okay, she's not going to leave me. She likes me more, or she likes me just as much, or whatever. It was just he was constantly in protection of his ego, and I just told him, you know, at some point I was like, this isn't going to work, because
oh,
if you're always protecting your ego, you are going to hurt me. You are going to throw me under the bus and sacrifice me to protect your ego. And that's not
yeah.
what love is. Love is
Yeah.
like letting your ego go, getting your ego hurt, like to do the right thing, to be a good human for the soul, right? To preserve
Mm-hmm.
the soul. And there's this great quote. Let's see if I can remember it right now. It says, when the ego cries for what it has lost, the soul rejoices for what it has gained.
I don't think I've heard that. Can you talk
And
more
I
about
think,
it?
well,
Yeah, I don't think I've heard that one before.
like, like for instance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just take, well, since we're talking about relationship thing, let's just take
Mm-hmm.
relationship as an example. So, you really like this guy and so you're like, okay, you know what? I'm really scared that if he knows how much I like him, that he's going to reject me. Let's say you're 6 months in with this person and you're like, I just want this person to know how I feel. So either they can tell me they feel the same when we continue or we're going to break up, right? So you're like, I'm going to be putting myself out there. I'm risking my ego and getting hurt because you're like, I don't want to play games anymore. I just want this to be a direct thing, right? So you're risking your own ego by telling this person exactly how you feel, right? And let's say they say, well, you know what? I don't feel the same way and blah, 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 right? So your ego is like, oh my God, like I feel rejected. I feel like crap. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have put myself out there like that. But your soul is rejoicing because guess what? You get to move forward. You get to do what's actually better for your life. You got to cut that and move forward. And then your soul like gets stronger and it won't get hurt so easily. You're like, I deserve someone who cares about me. And if you're not going to care about me the way I care about you, then I'm moving forward. Bye-bye.
That is honestly when we're talking about it, it's actually like low key giving me advice because, well, okay, so I don't do that anymore. But in the beginning of my relationship with this guy I'm currently dating at this moment, you know what, I didn't even realize it when I was, because I did have those moments. Actually, I had these moments when I was like drinking a little bit, so that's probably where it came out. But I was kind of saying like, "Oh, so why do you like me?" And now, honestly, I didn't even think about how it was my ego protecting me. And it makes sense though, because I've been hurt a lot by guys, like betrayed so much in my life. So I guess like passively my ego was protecting itself and I didn't like mean for it to happen. But I don't like now I'm like recognizing it because I don't want that to be me. And I think it came out because like I was drinking a lot of wine. And you know when you're drinking like some wine,
that's when everything comes out.
Exactly. So that's like when it came out. And like honestly, I feel like later today I have to say sorry to my boyfriend, but because I didn't honestly, now I'm just like, okay. But I know but the thing is it's like the bravest thing is to know, like for me, I know that wasn't right. And I'm every day working on myself. And I feel like just, going through life, we always have to all work on everyone's on a different level too. So with you, I think that's, you gave me like, I like how you did. I know you didn't know that I did that, but I think that for me listening, it actually helped me a lot. But you didn't know that you're helping me.
No, I did. Well, thank you. That makes me feel good. I'm happy about that. It's always hard to like let the ego go and be your authentic self and risk getting rejected and hurt. It's hard for men, it's hard for women. It's not easy, right? But the more you do that and lead with who you really are, the quicker you're going to get what you really want.
Yeah, you're so right. Like honestly, I mean like I love doing the podcast because I listen to so many different people. Everybody has such different advice and amazing advice. And it's just like, I love it so much. And I really do appreciate it. And I feel like after this, I'm like, okay, I really have to continue working on myself because there's some things in life I want. And it's like keeping me from it. It's because my ego and just stuff I need to like heal from in the past. But I really enjoyed this talking about the ego part. That was so much fun. Don't know how to talk.
No, I talk about that a lot in my book too. Like,
yeah, I was just gonna ask that. I was gonna ask you. I'm like, oh, all this stuff you're talking about, well, you're so educated on and have so much wisdom. Like, is this in your book?
It is. It is. And
Awesome.
it's through like my life experiences because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, right? Yeah. Even though I'm probably a little better sometimes than a psychologist.
You know what's so crazy? I officially love you right now. I wanna know why? Because you say what I think. I can never say that out, especially like just for me and like having to just I guess be sensitive to what I'm as a mental health advocate and what I do for mentally badass. I always try my best to stay sensitive in that, but because sometimes a lot of people try to use if I like some people don't like what I say. They're like, you're a mental health advocate. Why you have this opinion? I'm like, because I'm human. But anyway, you know, anytime someone disagrees with me on something on the internet, like it could be something that's not even mental health. It's just like, you know how it is on social media. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
so they're like, go to my profile and they'd be like, this is not really a mental health advocate kind of behavior. I'm like, no one's perfect.
We're all human. Come on.
Yeah. But
We all got that ego. We
people like to
all
get a
got that.
weapon. People like to get a weapon and like use it at me, and that's what they do. They go to my profile and they see like, oh, she does this. Oh, she's such a fake, or something
You know
like
what?
that.
You know what though? Anytime you put yourself out there in any way, there's gonna be haters, right? There's just gonna be haters, and like again, the more you're with the soul and less with the ego, you kind of aren't that fazed by it because you just kind of know it's part of the gig.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm good with myself, and that's all I can be. Like all I can be is like a good human being. I'm doing my best. When I mess up, like I shift gears, I make my amends, I apologize, And then
Yeah.
I mean, we're all human, And then the people that are writing that stuff are like unhappy and in pain, so you can't take it seriously. That's what I think.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're definitely right. And I was actually wanted to ask you was there like, okay, so you do have a large following on social media. So I'm assuming you had your fair share of trolls, right?
Yes.
Okay. So at first when it started, like how did you feel towards it? Did you kind of have like, I guess, the mindset attitude that you have now, which is like, it comes with the territory, or was it hard in the beginning for you?
Well, no, at first it was hard because you're like, oh my God, was that post inappropriate? Or should I have said that? Or should I have done that? Or, you definitely do question it, which is a good thing,
Okay. Yeah.
I actually think it's a good thing to question. You shouldn't just walk in the world and be like, I'm perfect. I don't
True.
do, you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
good
makes
to
sense.
question yourself and,
Yeah.
But after you question yourself and you're like, no, I believe that, or I'm cool with that, or, then you're being true to yourself. So.
Yeah. No, I like that. I definitely like the way you think about that, because I think of that too. And like, with the whole mental health stuff, if I do get a hate comment, well, first one thing I think of is how is the comment like is it saying, "Oh, you're like screw you," or is it like, "Hey, like I don't think that's cool." Like it depends, of course, how they come at you. You know what I mean? Like so I do social media management for like businesses, and people will even come out with like hate comments to like a tap room in a brewery. And it would just be like something. Yeah.
It might be their competitors.
No, it's just like okay. So some of them would be just like negative comments, like, "Oh, I'm not happy with this," which is totally fine, and I would reply to that, of course, because that's good customer service. But then some of them are like just inappropriate, and it sometimes makes me think like they might think if they comment on this that no one's gonna see it because it's like a restaurant. But like I see it. So, but I always delete those just because it's like it could be people being like, "Ah, this," or "This beer is shit."
Yeah. If somebody's really inappropriate, I'll just like delete it.
Yes, exactly.
I'm like, no one needs to see that.
No, you're so right. Like I just like delete and block. Like I've been doing such a great job at blocking. I'm just like, it took me a bit over the years to just like, because I would like get a little obsessive over like the comments just because of my history of like being bullied. But now I'm like practicing to like block.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna, you know what? I don't know why I didn't think about telling you this when we started this conversation, but this actually happened to me yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So here in Austin, I was on online dating, and then this guy was like, oh, let's, go out. I'm going to take you to the best cocktail place. And, like trying to kind of show off that he knows like the best cocktail places and everything. I'm like, okay, fine. Whatever, might be fun. So I asked him for his last name because I always ask them for their full name because I watch Dateline and True Crime, and everyone needs to know where I'm at and who I'm with and all of that.
No, yeah, it's totally fair.
So he asked me for my last name. So I gave him my last name. And then he messaged me that night, but I passed out. I fell asleep. And I woke up in the morning to a message that said, "Oh, you're an influencer? That's a hard pass. Yeah, I don't go out with influencers or something." And I said, "Oh, well, I guess you didn't look too hard because I'm an entrepreneur and my book is being published like by a reputable company." I mean, I didn't say that, but I said, I'm an author, my book's being published. And so that's very judgmental of you.
Yeah.
And then he wrote, oh God, let me just pull it up. Oh no, I have to turn my phone off so I don't get notifications. But basically he's like, and I was like, why even write back? I was like very judgmental.
Yeah. Super
And then
rude.
it was so rude. And then he goes, a normal guy like me won't work with like a girl that has over 300,000 followers. It's a recipe for disaster. Au revoir. And I was like, so I wrote, ciao, weirdo. And then I saw he started to write more. And so I was like, block. I'm like, why are you like writing more? Like you said you didn't want to go out with me. So because I'm an influencer. So why are you now like hating on me? It was like this is how I felt about it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the ego. And I could be wrong about this, but this is how I felt. I felt like he was excited to go out with me. He found out I was an influencer and I had over 300,000 followers. He got insecure about that.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's angry at me. And he has to be an ass to me because my presence made him feel insecure.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I was about to tell you and say he's rejecting you in that way and being rude because he's intimidated by all your accomplishments. And men like to be dominant and, potentially dating a woman that has all these accomplishments, he may feel little next to you, and guys don't like that. So,
and it's just so weird because it's like I don't walk into a room and I'm like, I've done this, I've done that. No. But he was the one that was like, I know the best cocktail bars in town. And I thought, okay, it's cute. He wants to impress me, like whatever.
Be like, well, okay. I am an author. Like,
no, but I wouldn't even bring it up unless like he asked me about it or was interested. It's just like I just like to be around nice people and have good conversation, and who knows, make like a new friend or something. So it's just, I guess the point of this, right, is to say you don't know what other people are dealing with in their own insecurities. So there might be something about you that triggers it. And then they're going to be mean to you for no reason because how he was speaking to me, how he was writing me was very mean.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's no reason to be mean to me because you don't even know me and I didn't do anything to you. So it's just when that happens, I'm like, I don't care because, I care when someone I love hurts me.
Yes, absolutely.
But like sorry, my presence makes you feel inadequate. Like I can't do anything for you about that.
Honestly, one time someone told me on social media to jump off a bridge with a rock wrapped around my ankle on TikTok. This was like 3 years ago, but I kind of laughed at it because it's just so funny. I'm like, oh, okay. Nice to meet you too.
Oh God. Yeah, I mean, with that kind of stuff, it's like.
Yeah. It was just like, it was creative.
If my friend comes up to me and says something rude, I'm like, why are you being mean to me?
Yeah. No, you're so right. And I go through that. Like, I live by that too. It's like when people say to you on the internet, if you don't even know them, like, and they're insulting you or whatever, it's like their opinions are not valid. The only opinions that like I would, care about is like, people that are like you're intimate, like close to you. And if they feel like, of course, I'll listen to them. So pretty much it's like I'll listen to what they have to say. I'll give them like the benefit of the doubt and like I'll like consider this. But if it's someone who like doesn't even know me and they're saying all this, it's like that's it pisses me off. And I also have this like big thing is where I hate when people assume things of other people. So like for example, like that guy is thinking, oh, you have almost 500,000 followers. You must be like influencers who think they're all that or think they're this. Like that's not true. and it's not fair to
Exactly.
you. You know what I mean? And then what happened
Exactly.
to that friend that I had with the Starbucks thing, if you ever met her, she is the sweetest human being that you will ever meet. She came from being homeless to what she's
Oh,
doing today. It's beautiful. And I've known her
amazing.
since we're like 14, 15 years old. So I know her like before everything, right? Before all
Yeah.
the other people knew her. And she's so sweet, like the sweetest. So it's like when I see these well, I didn't see her DMs obviously, but I did see that she did like a UGC video and it was sponsored. People were like in the comments being like, oh, this girl is just getting paid, or this girl's so fake, like she's just like reading from a script. And like the video, it is very bubbly. And it's, I mean, of course, she's not reading directly from a script, but obviously she does have like a layout. And I just know her personally. She's a very bubbly person. That's just her personality. So like I know for a fact she's not fake. And I know the fact that she's like an authentic, genuine person. But yeah,
Mhm.
so I saw that. I came up on Facebook as a sponsored post. I love like I just randomly go on TikTok and I just see her face randomly. And I just sent it to like one time it was like a tampon. It was like a tampon one, and my mom saw it. She's like, "Isn't this Brianna?" And I was like, "It's just really funny." But anyway, so
Good for
that, and then
her.
also just yeah, she deserves everything. She deserves everything. And then like this other like I just see so many people assuming things of others, and a lot of people forget that like it's easy to manipulate on social media, or it's easy to like make yourself like people could be the kindest people, but let's say the media can switch some clips around
Yeah.
and make them look bad. You know what I
Well,
mean?
and that's interesting too that you brought up that, because I actually have a chapter in my book, chapter 9, and it's called Decoding Relationships. And I talk about do not assume, like that's one of the things. And that's also one of the main agreements. And I think it's called the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I believe that's, yeah, the name of the book, the Four Agreements. And one of them is like, do not assume and stuff. And listen, we all do it. I
We're human.
assume,
Yeah.
we're human, like we all do it, and it's good to check ourselves, and like that happening to me kind of like checks me too, like, okay,
Oh,
don't like
okay.
assume, like, but once people show you who they are, thank you Maya Angelou, believe them. But we have to check ourselves with the assumptions, and definitely don't be rude to somebody just because you're assuming. Like, wait and let them show you who they are.
Emotional intelligence. A lot of people may not have it.
Yeah.
That's what it goes to it. He felt a certain feeling, which everyone's entitled to feelings, but it's all about how you respond.
Yeah.
And he didn't have that type of intelligence to respond in an appropriate way. Like let me see if I put myself in this position. I sometimes try my best to put myself in people's positions to understand what people think, like think the way they think, you know what I mean? I also have a background in psychology, so that's the reason why I'm like that. I psychoanalyze everything.
Yeah,
Um
me too.
yeah, yeah. So right. So if I felt like intimidated, I'm not the person that I would be mean to other people, because why would I want to do that? What I know how it feels to be mistreated. Why would I want to treat somebody how I don't want to be treated? Like I was brought up saying don't treat people the way you want to be treated, right?
Yeah.
So if anything, I either it depends on like if you weren't talking much, I probably would just like yeah, like not answer and just move on. But if you were obviously deep into conversation, I would just be like, hey, I just don't think we'll be a good fit. Like just something like that, you know? Move on.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
not like, oh, you're an influencer.
Hard pass. Hard pass.
The hard pass is so rude, like so rude. Hard pass. Like,
And then told me bye in like different languages.
wait, what?
Because he went au revoir, like in French, like au revoir. Oh, yeah.
No way. Oh wait, I
I
remember you telling me that.
was like, I know this is so, but honestly, when this kind of stuff happens, like I think it's like funny, and I like tell my
Hmm.
friends, and we laugh, it like gives us a good giggle. It did, like this literally did not hurt my feelings at all, because it was like so outrageously rude. It was like, and then I actually was
Comical.
great. It's comical, and I actually was grateful for it, because I'm like, oh my God, like what does my friend always say? She goes, rejection is God's protection.
Yes, I heard that.
Rejection protection. And so I'm like, thank you, God, for not like having me spend a miserable hour with this miserable human. You know what I mean? Like,
Go out
thank
the
you.
back of the kitchen, don't out. You know what they say? Like, oh, I'm gonna go to the bathroom and just never come back.
I know. I know. I did that once on a date
Did you
because it was
really?
scaring me. It was actually scaring me.
Oh my god, I feel like you should just have a podcast of just like your
Well, I
life.
think I
This is
need like a
fun.
podcast or I need to write a book about all my crazy dating experiences. Like,
Oh my god, you
it is
should make like a. I mean, hey, do a podcast, and if you want me
because
to guest, let me
I
know.
have gone on dates all over the world because I've lived in different countries.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, except so many of them I don't remember. I literally have to interview my friends and be like, tell me all the dating stories you remember.
Moments like that too, where it's just like all a blur, and I have to
Yeah.
really think about like certain experiences. Like sometimes people will be like, "Oh, do you remember this?" And this person did this to you, and I'm like, "Huh? They did? I'm glad you remember this, and I had no idea." And wow, our brains operate the same way. I always like to end it with you talking about your book and your sportswear, and so floor is yours.
Okay, so I am the creator of Confused Girl in the City. And I literally came up with that name when I was getting out of my depression, which I talked about earlier,
Mhm.
because I was confused and I was tired of pretending like I knew everything, how I had done before. Like, I know, like I'm cool. Look at me. I'm cool, girl. I'm doing all the cool things. I was just so over that. So it's like, I'm confused. What, you know what I mean?
Like, who am
And
I?
so,
Yeah.
and I named my brand that because I also wanted to take the shame out of being confused. I wanted it to no longer be like a shameful thing. It's just kind of part of life. Then, then as I went on, I was like, you know what? Confusion is actually a virtue.
Hmm.
And then I thought I should write a book about that. And so the premise of the book is that confusion is actually a virtue because you can't discover anything until you are confused. Because if you walk around the world just thinking you know everything, what are you discovering? But if you're confused, you're in a state of like discovery.
Yeah.
So I tell people, oh, they make fun of me a little bit, like, oh, are you still confused? Are you? And I was like, I hope I'm always confused because I always want to be discovering new things.
The way we think of that, because a lot of times when people feel confused, they do feel like that shame, like, oh my gosh, I can't. Like, why am I always confused? Like, there people always say that. And I like how you connected the word confused to something positive, which is great. A lot of times, like, I get confused, and I'm working on trying to not feel bad about that. So when I'm confused, I'm just like, can you explain it to me? And then you discover and you learn. That's like the greatest gift.
Yeah, and I think, what I was confused about in my late 20s is different than what I'm confused about right now and is going to be different, later on in my life. I mean, sometimes when you turn a certain age, you're confused about that. When you are unhappy in your career, want to switch your career, when you don't know what school you want to go to, if you want to go back to school, in a relationship, when you have a child, getting older, when, my father passed away a year and a half ago, and that was confusing. Like, how do I deal with the death of someone I loved so much? And so just life is going to constantly bring you these situations that are confusing and sometimes very painful.
Mhm.
And instead of, rejecting it and trying to bulldoze through it, like, I got this, I know this, I know this, I know this. If you just kind of allow yourself to accept it and go, I'm confused right now, but I'm open to being shown a solution or a way forward, then usually the solution and the way forward like comes to you. And there's so much discovery within that. So it's like, I'm just so over, looking cool and thinking I know everything because I don't.
And that takes a lot of courage to go from one thing to another. And I definitely want to order your book. I know it's on pre order right now. When is it going to come out?
So it's coming out May 2025.
Okay.
So
Nice.
it's a little bit of ways away, but you can pre-order it now. And I'm sure you have the link and everything. And it's all on my website as well.
So I just want to say thank you so much for coming on to Mentally a Badass and providing us so much wisdom. I've learned a lot from you. And I hope that, the people are listening can listen and have like that moment where they're like, not the aha moment, but what you were saying when you listen to podcasts, we have those moments where everything just changes. So I hope that people are listening will have one of those moments with you as well.
Oh, I hope so too. And thank you so much for having me. You're a sweetheart. Thank you.
Thank you. And for everyone who's listening, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and stay tuned for next week's episode.